In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Our Lady, seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
Saint Peter,
Pray for
Saint
us.
Thomas Aquinas,
Pray for us.
and the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Okay. I just realised that the felt pens are over in the office, and I'll quickly grab those to keep them away from the kids.
So I'll just come read it to
All right. Where did we finish last week?
Finished on degrees of perfection.
Number 4, the argument from degrees of perfection. Excellent. And was the last part of the note that...
The being of all beings is God.
sorry?
The being of all beings is God.
Correct. That's the one. All right, so let's go to number 5. The 20 arguments for the existence of God. Argument number 5. The design argument. Okay. 1. The universe displays a staggering amount of intelligibility. Both within the things we observe and in the way these things relate. To others outside themselves. That is to say, the way they exist and coexist display an intricately beautiful order and regularity. That can fill even the most casual observer with wonder. It is the norm in nature for many different beings to work together to produce the same valuable end. For example, the organs in the body. Work for our life and health. The universe displays a staggering amount of intelligibility, so we're talking about design, how things are designed, both within the things we observe and in these things, and in the way these things relate to others outside themselves. That is to say, the way they exist and coexist display an intricately beautiful order of regularity. They can fill even the most casual observer with wonder. Of course, anybody who's ever looked into the natural sciences would agree. It is the norm in nature. Doesn't matter what part of nature we're looking at, physical nature that we're talking about, for many different beings to work together to produce the same valuable end. For example, the organs in the body, each of which are different things, beings within the body, and they all work for our life and health. It's an incredible design in the way that they work together. Any movement that we do, anything that we do, the growth of humans, it's just quite incredible. The way it's put together. So that's the first part of the design argument. The second one is either this intelligible order is the product of chance, I think you'd have more chance in winning lotto 10 weeks in a row, or of intelligent design. Okay. Number 3. It is not by chance. And number 4, therefore, the universe is the product intelligent design. Number 5, design comes only from a mind. A designer. Okay, and then we'll get to number 6, which is a big one to write out. This one should make clear sense to all of us. The first proposition up there is a broad one, but it points out that there is so much diversity throughout all of creation, and yet the diversity seems to work along with other parts within the entire created universe as we see it. So either in this intelligible, and it is somewhat intelligent, the fact that things work within nature. The weather works, for example. So many different elements there. The oceans work, the air, the heating, everything within nature works. Things grow, things are able to multiply, and therefore it is staggeringly intelligent in the way that it works. The design seems to work very, very well. I mean, if we were to put wings on a stone and think, right, this has got to work, and then you just throw your stone out there, you're incredibly surprised to find that the stone works still as a stone and the wings don't work. It's amazing. Wings are meant to fly and stones are weight, but together with the wings it should fly, yet they don't. Anyway, so obviously it is not by chance, and I'll go into this by chance when you've got it down. Therefore the universe is a product of intelligent design. Design comes only from a mind, a designer. Alright, so we get to number 6 in a second. So, chance. Oh yeah, I suppose this one does go, number 6 does go into chance. Let's just test you if you can answer a couple of these ideals by chance. If somebody says to you, well yeah, if chance doesn't work the first time, well, then it might work the second time. That is true, isn't it? If you just happen to have random elements, if you happen to have some wings somewhere, and you happen to have a body somewhere, and then you happen to have a breathing organism or something like that, then surely somehow or other the breathing organism, maybe not with a stone, but with a body, and then you can chuck some wings in it, and eventually, it might not work the first time, but it might work the second time. But if it doesn't work the second time, there's always a third time. And so this idea that says, eventually, after millions and millions and millions of attempts, that eventually it will work, and that's how the intelligent human race came about, and that's also how the universe came around to have this order, that eventually all the things that didn't work, but the ones that did work came about over a period of hundreds of millions of years, as apparently the Earth has been taken this long, and therefore we have what we have today because of that. Where's the flaw in that, or several of them?
If it doesn't work the first time, the organism dies, and so there can't be a second time?
Well, no, because let's just say the individual parts of the organism somehow or other have some design that keeps them moving. But yes, you are right, because if they are failing off at a rapid rate of knots. But I'm not talking about necessarily dying. They might exist as more fundamental organisms, but they seem to all work together eventually in something like, let's just use the example of flight. So let's say the Haast eagle. You not heard of the Haast eagle? Come on, New Zealand's greatest ever bird.
Rather large.
Extremely large. So it was the Haast eagle against the moa. And neither won in the end, mainly because the Haast eagle got killed off, and the moa got killed off. Once Māori got here, the moa was done. But the Haast eagle was the world's largest ever bird of prey that the world has known, apart from dinosaurs. But the Haast eagle was enormous. It had a wingspan of up to, I think, 4 meters. which would be almost like, that's 5 metres from here to the wall. So you can just imagine, it's 2 metres in each wing, and its body could be up to nearly 1.5 metres in length. Its talons, which we have in the National Museum, the talons were enormous, like the claws were that size. And this is a bird flying around the South Island, around the Haast Pass. Don't go to the Haast Pass back in those days. And so it could hunt humans. Not fully grown humans, which would be far too big to carry, but definitely children. It could pick off small humans. And anything else that happened to be outside the bush, because New Zealand was covered, 99% of New Zealand was covered in bush. And the Haast eagle had a remarkable ability in its wing structure to fly amongst trees, which big wide brim airplanes don't sort of get around that stuff. But the Haast eagle was an incredible ability to contract its wings while still flying and not just shoot through. But the Haast eagle eventually got killed off, I suppose, or died off. I read something about it. So let's just say the Haast eagle eventually gets all the bits come together, the wide wingspan, the feathers that can handle a cold, and the ability of incredible eyesight and flight capabilities and all. They all just, all these little bits all came together, reproductive systems and all this, and it just came together, and eventually you had the Haast eagle, which was the top of the chain in New Zealand as far as natural animals were concerned. Surely if it didn't happen over the first 50 million years, then by the second 50 million years there were smaller birds or something, and then it just happened to be that after 250 million years we ended up with a Haast eagle. So the idea that it could, all the parts, that if they don't work originally they would just die off, that is one theory, but there's a lot of other common sense reasons as to why design, we say, works, but randomness, in other words, just that one didn't work, so just randomly the dice were getting rolled and was coming out with a whole lot of other answers that just didn't work, and eventually one of all the millions of possibilities of joining things together, eventually one of them worked. Why is this a bad theory?
How did we even start? How did it even start?
Well, yeah, I don't think...
Just amoeba. Whatever it was.
Yeah, and through the amoeba, somehow, or just by chance, after millions of possibilities of amoeba doing things, finally one amoeba somehow or other reproduced into something else, and then through millions and millions of chances of amoeba from something else, and then millions of chances failed, and then eventually, by chance, it became a tadpole, or something like that, and then by millions and millions of possibilities of chance, it then became a frog, which then became a sea-swimming fish that eventually, millions of chances, that happened to grow legs, which by millions and more chances, then happened to just climb up upon the land, and then millions of chances, it eventually grew wings. And so what's wrong with that theory? Chance.
Chance, you need a heap of time, and chances, I mean, I'm just looking...
Can you still grow wings with chance?
Yeah, chance. I mean, basically, if you've got that, you'd, say you've got a bimorphic species. Basically, you need to happen for male and female as well. Or
well, yeah, but by chance, let's say that the amoeba has the ability sort of to divide, or let's just say it's a cell that can divide. But by chance, it eventually grows, and then it eventually, in its own environment, it's eventually able to grow to a certain point that that its reproduction system is able to conquer other creatures, and then it grows the ability to grow big enough by chance, because other ones are failing to grow big enough to be sort of like a large predatory fish, that eventually, because of conditions and chance again, it grows the ability to be an amphibian, and then eventually it grows the ability to stay on land, and then eventually it grows the ability to not only stay on land and start to dominate on land, but eventually grows the ability to grow wings, because the moa grew wings and the kiwi grew wings, neither of whom were able to use them for flight, but they were able to use them for flapping. But eventually its wings that it grew by chance eventually grew so big that it became the Haast eagle. So all of this is by chance over millions and millions and millions of years. A million years is a long time. So over millions of years, could this happen by chance? So again, the answer is a rational answer, just based on just right reason.
When the same process is repeated, why would we expect a different result when we're repeating the same process? The same thing happening can't produce something different logically.
Well, because it's adapting to its own failure.
Okay, and so that it's failing. So how can something that's lesser suddenly start producing something better? Of itself, it has nothing in it.
Okay, this is the whole idea,
How can you give more than it's got?
but this is the whole idea behind evolution. It's evolving in its environment to be the one that survives because it needs to be better. And so this does happen in the animal kingdom. Some animals will grow a greater shield of protective, whatever it is, scales around them in order to be able to defend themselves better. They just grow over time to grow a little bit more dense, or it grows a little bit faster or something like, because its environment, maybe it ends up in an environment where it needs more speed and less agility, and so it grows into something with it's a theory, I know, but
Who programmed it?
I'm not asking that. I'm asking about the theory by chance, in and of itself, by chance, that these things come around by multiple failures, that eventually by chance it evolves into something better. Because what you can't bring into this theory is you can't bring in intelligence or intelligent design. This is an anti-intelligent design, which is what we're talking. This is the anti-intelligent design argument. So where is the major flaw in this anti-intelligent design argument?
What's it heading towards? It's heading towards survivability.
What's that?
It lacks intelligence.
No, that's not the flaw in the argument in and of itself. The argument is an argument for chance, and chance brings about evolution, because the chances means that as it keeps moving and moving and moving, the large numbers of combined factors that are working within the space of an evolving creature, many times it's just not evolving that much. But eventually, by chance, it does evolve.
Something before you can have chance.
Well, yes, okay, we're ignoring that. Okay, we're ignoring the fact that something has come from, well, they're saying it's come from a blurb. They don't really want to go down that dark alley. They're talking about how is it that things are of design now? How is the Haast eagle the final product? And they're saying by chance over eons.
Prove it.
Look, there's one of those chance could lead just as easily to it not working as to it working. There's not enough. There's not enough time for it to happen.
Right. Okay. So here's the answer. And this is just a bad example, but it is an example. If I flip this pen up like this, what is the chance of it landing like that on the ground and staying like that on the ground?
Very little.
Could it happen?
Yes.
Yes.
It could. More than likely it's going to bounce. Well, let's just say it bounces and lands again and stays up like that. What's the chance of it happening?
Very low.
Yeah, okay, give me a figure.
1 in a million.
1 in a million?
I mean, no.
I'd say more like 1 in a trillion.
Oh, really?
Or maybe 1 in 100 trillion. I mean, okay, we can stay here for the next 100 years. There is a chance that it can happen.
Oh, the variables, you're varying the rate you throw it, there's variables happening.
Well, okay, let's say I was to do this. Okay, then the chance is going to diminish, but I didn't say that. I said you flip it up in the air like that and it lands on the ground. Okay, so it's just one thing that we would say, it's just a random action, but it does have a possibility of succeeding. Right, so for the Haast eagle to come about, you needed that to happen. You needed that one thing to happen. It actually stopped on that and fell over. Crikey. 1 in 100 million. Well, it's divine. So the chances of that happening are extremely slim. But in order for the Haast eagle to come about through chance, you need that 1 in a trillion event to happen on every single cell in the Haast eagle's body.
And that's just the females.
It's just one of them. Okay, and that's just one animal. And imagine if that was the same for a tree, or the same for an ocean current, or the same for a tigress, or you name it. The world is so complicated with so many millions upon millions of creatures, all of which seem to manage working in their own ecosystem, eating each other, and all of this, and each one of them came about to the position of their design by chance.
I've heard it kind of explained like you've got a big storm comes through and at the end of it you've got a 747.
Exactly. Okay? But that is what they're basically saying. They're saying that if you were to put a 747 through a crunching machine, okay, and it came out the other end as 100 million pieces of bits, and you throw those bits up and they land, there is a chance.
They fly away.
Right, there is a chance. However, that chance has more zeros than time could ever have existed since the beginning of the universe. And that's just for the 747. So the argument against design is the argument of chance, okay? Design means that there is an order, an intelligible order. Chance means there is no intelligible order to organize the thing, that it came about by chance. But any decent scientist worth his weight in gold would just go, yikes. And they would just, statistically speaking, just go, there are not enough zeros in a computer. Even if you were to put things to the power, let's say 5 times 10 to the power of, there are not enough zeros in the power to be able to do it. It's just not possible.
I saw something once that was a similar thing, but it was like, it was like 10 to the power of 164. You know, it's like it just went on and on and on and on. The chance of like this one thing happening.
Yeah.
More atoms, more than the atoms in the universe.
That's right. So in terms of the argument thus far, and look, there are people in the universities, they'll push this a lot. They'll just say, hey, it's by chance. It just came about eventually, over time, evolution came about by chance. Now, of course, the point that you were making, so what was the material to begin with? Where did that come from? Okay, and of course this is where it falls out even more. But that's not the argument against design. That's a totally different argument we're talking of there. Everybody got that one down? We'll go to number 6 in this. Not number 6 as in design argument, but number 6 here is almost sort of like the cumulative point in this. All right, the 6th part. Therefore, the universe is the product of an intelligent designer. The first premise is certainly true. Even those resistant to the argument admit it. The person who did not would have to be almost pathetically obtuse. A single protein molecule is a thing of immensely impressive order. Much more so a single cell. And incredibly much more so an organ like the eye. Where ordered parts of enormous and delicate complexity work together. With countless others to achieve a single certain end. Even chemical elements are ordered to combine with other elements in certain ways and under certain conditions. Apparent disorder is a problem precisely because of the overwhelming pervasiveness of order and regularity. So, the first premise stands. Okay, so that first premise was that long one that we wrote, number one, the universe displays a staggering amount of intelligibility, both within the things we observe and the way these things relate to each other, and eventually it comes out as the norm and nature for different beings to work together, produce the same valuable end. For example, the organs of the body work for our life and health. So, opening up that premise, we say the first, the universe is the product of an intelligent designer, okay? The first premise is certainly true, even those resistant to the argument admit it. And this first one, that it seems like there is just intelligence in the way that it has been designed. The person who did not admit this would have to be almost pathetically obtuse. In other words, they're just so broad, they keep going chance, 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 and keep going wider and wider and wider, and just keep saying chance until they fall asleep. And eventually they haven't actually proven it, just keep saying, I'm prepared to go wider, I'm prepared to go wider, I'm prepared to go wider in my argument. A single protein molecule. So now we start to go into the proof of this, and it's really important for us to be able to know this second part of the discussion. A single protein molecules. Remember, way back in science class, the first time you looked under a microscope and they were only looking at single cells, and their single cells are made up of protein molecules. But the protein molecules themselves are immensely impressive order inside the protein molecule. The DNA within it, all that sort of stuff, all of it is just so incredibly ordered. Much more so, therefore, in a single cell, which is made up of multiple molecules, all of which are working together. And we're talking on the microscopic scale. Okay, and then above that, we're looking like an organ like the eye. And I love the idea that you use the eye because it's probably the most complex organ we've got in the whole body. Okay, we're ordered parts of an enormous and delicate complexity. And science still struggles to understand how accurate this tiny little ball rolling around in our head can be incredibly accurate with regards to the image that it portrays in our brain and how it's coloured and how the depth is right. And how on earth is this possible? And it's made up of these single cells, which are made up of protein molecules, which all of which are in incredible order just in them all. And yet not only in that, even the eye, the ordered parts of an enormous delicate complexity work together with countless others to achieve a single certain end, vision, and correct vision. And imagine if we're not even talking about the human eye. Imagine if we're talking about the Haast eagle's eye. You know, flying at a height of 2,000 metres. And at the height of 2,000 metres can see a field mouse. Well, it's ridiculous. But it's not, because it has a capability within its eye of incredible sharpness of vision, even over speed. As it flies down at speed, you know, with the wind rushing, the eye is adjusting all the time. There are so many elements working in there, and even chemical elements, even within the eye. Even little chemical elements which need to be there are ordered to combine with other elements in certain ways and under certain conditions, flying at 100 kilometres an hour. As it's dive bombing, its eye still remains focused. How on earth is that? The chemicals around it are adjusting as the brain is adjusting these things with... Okay, so we're talking ridiculousness on one organ in the body of one creature. And within that one organ in the body, there's an enormous amount of cell work, single cells combining in various different ways to create the parts of the eye, which each and every one of themselves are made up of multiple molecules, each of which are incredibly complex. It's just one eagle in one place, one eye of it all. So apparent disorder. Imagine if there was disorder in the eye. There are a lot of Haast eagles crashing into the cliffs and the ground. Okay, is a problem precisely because of the overwhelming pervasiveness of order and regularity. If there is not the order and regularity, it doesn't work, the creature doesn't work, it doesn't exist. So therefore it has to have this incredible amount of order, it has to be regularly, and has to come out the same way because that's the way it's meant to be. The design argument therefore just goes through the roof. And this is a really good one to remind yourself of when you are talking about a designer. Okay? Because the complexity of design in the natural kingdom is just through the roof.
I think it was one of the things they call it irreducible complexity, just for the eye example, was basically taking that, what you were saying, the statistical chances of it. You have things like the eye that need multiple things to all work together, or they just it doesn't work. If it doesn't work,
Yep.
the organism doesn't live. So it's like, and the chances of them all working together and coming into existence at one time is just, the statistics go into
That's right.
possibility.
The mathematical impossibility of it just of one little mistake. Amongst all of these factors in there, the chance of one little mistake making that the eye is not working properly, well, yeah, that can happen. And yet, we have trillions upon trillions of eyes in the animal kingdom, from insects through to animals to humans, and they work. Okay? Oh, I know somebody's blind, their eyes don't work. Yeah, okay, it's the exception, doesn't make the rule. Their eye is still designed to work. It has a malfunction in there. Okay? And as simple as that, it's like a malfunction. All the cars in the world are designed to work as well. Maybe there's a few, there's probably not. I remember like this, that Romanian one was called the Dacia. That was right out there. It was pretty bad, actually. And the Lada, and the Yugoslav one, we heard of the Lada, is pretty good. There's a little bit more in this. Okay, another page. Right, we'll write out one more. So, have you ever seen the, who are those British guys who would do a program on looking at different cars?
Top Gear.
Top Gear, yeah. Did you ever see the one on Eastern European cars? Oh, it's really good. It's really good. They looked at the classics of communist Eastern Europe, because each country had one of their own cars. Yugoslavia had the Lada. The Yugo. Russia had the Lada. Romania had the Dacia. East Germany had the Trabant. And Bulgaria didn't have anything. The place was really bad. I think the Czech Republic had the Skoda, which is now owned by VW, which makes really good cars now. And then I think there was one more, and it was just incredible. They were testing these cars. I mean, the Lada was quite impressive in that it had inside, I mean, they're built like tanks, but it had inside, it had a little hole in the, you could lift up the mat and unscrew something and then move something. You had a hole in it just under where the feet of the driver were.
Flintstone.
What's that?
Like a Flintstone.
Yeah, but do you know what the hole's for?
Cleaning.
It's quite, no, it's quite brilliant.
Escape.
What's that?
Escape.
So some part of the motor to...
No.
Is it?
What was the hole for? Intelligent design. What was the hole for?
But once we
Cool.
were at Western Springs, there was a family there and they had a big van. And what it was, that they're getting the ducks to come in and they're feeding them through, I don't know, but somewhere, I got the impression that they're dropping the food down a hole in the van.
Okay.
For the ducks to come in.
So the Lada had a
Ducks
hole
went
there.
one way, yes, you don't know.
The Lada had a hole in its floor so that Russians could go ice fishing.
Oh.
That's not dissimilar.
You drive the Lada out onto the frozen Lake Baikal in minus 40, 50 or 60 and turn on the engine and keep that heater sort of running. And then they would lower down their fishing rod and having it drilled a hole in the lake and move the car over the top, and then lower down their fishing rod and fish. And when they pulled something, of course, there might have been another thing, otherwise the fish wouldn't get through the hole. But yeah, it was actually for fishing on a frozen lake.
Okay.
Intelligent design. Soviet way. Okay.
Maybe if there was the first time it was just a hole there by chance and then somebody...
Maybe it was designed by a fish that was too cold down there. Who knows? Yeah. Okay, if all disorders are not in some way, so if all this order is not in some way the product of intelligent design, then what? Great question. obviously, it just happened. Things just fell out that way. Okay, so again, mocking the idea of chance. By chance. Alternatively, if all this order is not the product, of blind purposeless forces, then it has resulted from some kind of purpose. That purpose can only be intelligent design. It is, of course, the third premise that is crucial. Ultimately, non-believers tell us it is indeed by chance. And not by any design. That the universe of our existence exists the way it does it just happens to have this order. I'd love to be in a university class when they try to teach this. I don't know what class it would be in. It would be chaotic. Imagine trying to teach a class with this. I mean, people would just have to go, hang on a minute. But they still do it, they get away with it. Just happens to have this order. And the burden of proof is on believers, of course. To demonstrate why this could not be. By chance alone. what university course would they actually teach something like, it has to be like anthropology? I don't know. Yeah, human anthropology probably. But they do, they teach it. It's just, they teach it openly in universities.
Sixth form biology, evolution by now.
Wow. Well, no surprise.
I used to laugh when you go to the zoo and you know they've got the chimpanzee exhibits and they're like, our closest relative.
Well, I'm amazed the chimpanzee's not hanging out with the giraffe. How come we don't have giraffes? I mean, chimpiraffes. Surely that can happen eventually by chance. It's got to happen. So anyway, I mean, it's just like, as I said, we want I understand this idea that chance is so far from the possibility of it actually happening that this is the last few lines of this are the most ridiculous part of all. That surely the onus of proof on chance is by the one who's claiming it's by chance. Okay, I'd like you to actually demonstrate this in some way, shape or form, please, with regards to a semi-complex organ like the eye. Just show me how this can come about by chance. Just please. Just put it out there. Scientifically speaking, we'd love to hear what you've got to say. No, they won't do it. They'll just say, no, you have to prove that it is by order, by design. And they won't take many of your premises as well. So it's a very anti-scientific argument that they put forward, the idea, the argument by chance.
David Attenborough say on a thing, you know, we're 99, we know what's happened, you know, how it's come about 99% of the way. He's talking about natural selection, I suppose. But he seems to think that 99% we all know. We just need to know that 1% how it all started.
That's right.
Basically. So I mean, there's 99% really is that much.
Right.
And everybody doesn't know is that much. Yeah.
What they're basically saying is the aeroplane that's up there is the final product and we know it, and therefore that's 99% of it. There's just 1% that just clicked man over from the first Stone Age rock to that. It's just as simple as that. And there's just so many more elements in there. But yeah, the very fundamental point behind their very argument, they can't. It's not the 1%; it's the 99% that leads them to the 1%. So very, very poor argumentation. But again, I think that design is one of the best arguments you can possibly get for intelligent designer and for God, proof of God.
And not only design of the animal life, design of the universe.
The whole thing.
Like where the Earth is placed to,
Yeah,
in relation to the Sun.
Push it under the sun.
Yeah.
If we were 500 kilometres closer over the millions of kilometres between the Earth and the Sun, if we were 500 kilometres closer or 1,000 kilometres closer, parts of the Earth would just be, well, you wouldn't survive. It would be that incredible. Or 500 kilometres further away and we freeze, sort of thing. So, yeah, exactly. Its location with regards to the Sun, everything about it, the whole of the universe's order is just incredible. And even the planets. The moons around the planets which govern the movement of tides and stuff.
And gravity.
Yeah.
If it was just, you know,
A little bit further out, we'd all be stuck on the ground or bouncing around really high. Might not be that good actually.
Depends how far out they go.
You'd be wearing a helmet a lot of the time. Walking, oh, not again. It makes ceilings a lot higher all the time. Okay, let's have a quick break. And so that was number 5, the design argument. Number 6, I am skipping. It's called the Kalam argument. K-L-A-M. The Arabic word kalam literally means speech, but came to denote a certain type of philosophical theology. A type containing demonstrations that the world could not be infinitely old and must therefore have been created by God. This sort of demonstration has a long, wide appeal both among Christians and Muslims. Its form is simple and straightforward. 1. Whatever begins to exist has a cause for its coming into being. 2. The universe began to exist. 3. Therefore the universe has a cause for its coming into being. I'm going to skip over that one because it does come back in other argumentation along the way. Okay, so a quick break and then we're going to go to the argument number 7 from contingency. Cinco. Yeah.
Oh, it has been on 2 years.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Okay, sounds good.
Was after the
Yes, yeah.
that was fine? Yes. Yeah. So it was kind of that. So it's even I was just like, I don't know whether it's been a short or so basically. So that's what I was like. Symptoms that I was on. Yes, at the same time. But you know, she's got a history copy. He's not done it. He's executive. So I just.
It's another issue.
Yeah, that's
Something else to take
It's
into
all
consideration.
It'll get smaller. All right, let's get going. The argument from contingency. Remember the meaning of what is something to be contingent?
Realising something else for a second.
In and of itself, okay? As opposed to we have contingent being, necessary being, we have contingent being something that has dependence on something else. Okay? So, the argument of contingency has 5 premises. The basic form of the argument is simple. 1. If something exists, there must exist what it takes for that thing to exist. The universe, number 2, the collection of beings in space and time exists. 3. Therefore, there must exist what it takes for the universe to exist. 4. What it takes for the universe to exist cannot exist within the universe. Or be bounded by space and time. 5. Therefore, what it takes for the universe to exist must transcend both. Space and time. Does this tie you into too many knots, or is this able to be followed? You know, break down each one of these and have a look at them in and of themselves to be able to understand what it is that they're saying. So if something exists, for it to exist, there must exist what it takes for the thing to exist. Pretty much like for the blob to come about, there has to be something blobby or something of a blob nature or something of a being for that blob in order for the blob to exist. So for the universe to exist, there has to exist that which it takes for a universe to exist in order for the thing to exist. So we're not saying it's already there, but in order for it to exist. In other words, it hasn't yet, we're talking something that hasn't happened in time and space. Once there is existence, you have space, it takes it up, and you have time, because once it's there, time moves around it, that exists now and exists now. So in order for that to begin, there has to exist the material, or the scope, the capability for that thing to exist before it begins to exist. So, if something exists, there must exist what it takes for that thing to exist. So there has to be this existence of this stuff before it begins to exist in order for it to begin to exist. Number 2, the universe is a collection of beings in time and space. So the universe is in existence, it's in time and it's in space. It takes up space. Things in the universe take up space, and therefore to go from one to another or for it to expand, it takes time. If it's in existence, it takes up space. When there's space, there's automatically time. Okay? So, and the universe does exist. Therefore, there must exist what it takes for the universe to exist prior to its existing. 4, what it takes for the universe to exist cannot exist within that universe. before it has existed. So what's necessary for the universe to exist must exist before the universe does, and it can't come from the universe because it doesn't exist at that point in time. And it cannot be bounded by space and time, otherwise it will exist already. Space and time. In other words, there it is. We're just using these materials here, and we're going to put them over here, and we're going to create a universe. Well, hang on a minute, they were already existing, but they're in a parallel universe. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about if the universe exists. Yeah, I know, it's great, isn't it?
Is where the multiple possibilities of chance come from all these alternatives?
Exactly. But this is why we only have an hour and a half for class. Imagine if it was longer, your brains would just really start hurting. Therefore, what it takes for the universe to exist must transcend space and time.
So we're calling God what it takes for the universe to exist?
Yeah. Something that does not enveloped or engulfed by space or time. In other words, outside of space and outside of time. But within that, which is outside of space and what's outside of time, has that which with the universe can exist from that. Which of course we know where that's going to go, but we need to go through this very, very obtuse or even theoretical argument in order to get there, especially for that. And don't worry, we're going to go now into X's and Y's. If X exists, and therefore Y must exist, and so on and so forth. If you're willing to try this. It's a good argument, this one.
The scientists would say, for 1, 2 and 3, that if something exists, there must exist what it takes for that thing to exist, and therefore, yes, those are called atoms. The universe is a collection of atoms. We haven't got that other point yet. Therefore, there must exist what it takes for the universe to exist. Therefore, there must be atoms. Then what does it take for the universe to exist? Cannot exist within the universe. They then say, well, that's why we have the Big Bang. That was the thing that created all the distribution of the atoms.
Distribution of matter that already existed.
Now we come to point 5. Must transcend. Yeah, we cannot define what happened before the Big Bang or what that thing was at the Big Bang.
Exactly. So it remains a very empty.
Neither can you.
Remains a very empty theory. So the material in order to make a universe and bring a universe into existence, whether or not it's a Big Bang or not, if the Big Bang exists, the Big Bang is material that has been dispersed throughout the universe and somehow or other falls into order, which is kind of, won't worry about that one. But the fact that material exists means that there is space and time already, which means that material for the Big Bang came from
Another universe.
which also, yeah, exactly.
Where they come from?
Scientifically, it's still very empty, isn't it? Scientifically. In order for something to exist in space and time, there has to have existed prior to its existence in space and time something that has the capability, that it has what it takes for the thing to exist. In other words, all of the energy contained within the instant of the Big Bang, so it can't just be energy, because energy has ended up after the Big Bang to create matter. Matter cannot come from non-matter in space and time. Because 0 plus 0 or 0 times 0 is always going to, 0 times any number is always going to end up with 0. So if we end up with material, then it has to have come from material in terms of the physical science of the denial of the God scientific theory, and it just doesn't work out in the end. It can't. Whereas we're saying that what it takes for the universe to exist must transcend space and time for it to bring the universe into existence, because it has to exist in what it takes for it to bring about existence. Because when existence is brought about, the only other way they can do this is this ad infinitum argument. It's always been there. Which still ends up just very circular. Because that makes it infinite. And if it's infinite, then it's almost a circular argument. It comes from itself, which is number 4. What it takes for the universe to exist cannot exist within the universe. So that's the infinity argument.
A equals B, which causes C, which causes A, which causes
Exactly, yeah. And it can't exist. So what does it take for the universe to exist? This is our question. Okay, what does it take for the universe to exist? And they can't just say, it always has, not even answer the question. Because that's saying that the material for what it takes for the universe to exist. It's a good little phrase that's being used here, eh? Talking about what is there now, but what does it take for the universe to exist? Well, it can't come from existing material, because that means it's already existing. We're asking prior to that, what does it take? What is there needed in order for the universe to exist? It has to transcend space and time. It has to come before the existence of the universe. Our mind has sort of got to work around physical, but there's only got to work around the two things, space and time. And I know these are hard concepts to construct in our own minds in terms of the equation, so to speak, that we're talking about here. Space and time have limitations, extreme limitations. So for what it takes for the universe to exist can't be in space and time, because that means they are already in existence, and therefore they are not what it takes. They are just what it's composed of, but not what it takes for it, the future thing.
If they exist within them, they are limited, and they can't. Nothing exists before that thing coming into being, and ergo it can't come into being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's fun. Oh, challenging. All right. Let's say we deny the first premise. If something exists, there must exist what it takes for the thing to exist. So let's deny the first premise. Deny first premise. Then, if X exists, there need not be then if X exists, there need not exist what it takes for X to exist, okay? What it takes for X to exist. Going by our point up here, if something exists, there must exist what it takes for a thing to exist. So we'll deny the first premise. We deny that one. So if X exists, there is no need for it to exist. There need not exist what it needs to take to X for exist. But what it takes for X to exist what it takes for means the immediate condition conditions for X's existence. you mean that X exists only if Y. We just took another possibility. Without Y, there can be no X. So, the denial of premise 1 amounts to this. X exists X can only exist if Y exists, because we denied the first principle, and Y does not exist. This is absurd. So, there must exist what it takes for the universe to exist. But what does it take? Just by applying just the x's and the y's, not even having to plug anything into it, if we deny the first principle up there, if something exists, there must exist what it takes for that thing to exist. No, you're going to deny that. No, I'm not going to work that way. Okay, all right, so you're saying, so x exists, but it exists because of y. Y doesn't exist then. There's no such thing as x. It's automatically a ridiculous argument. So they've got to take these arguments through from advanced logic in order to be able to work out that their theories are miles off. To know the first premise. If x exists, there need not to exist what it takes for x to exist. That thing that we use there, what it takes for it to exist. But what it takes for x to exist means the immediate conditions for x's existence. You mean that x exists because exists only if y. Without y, there can be no x. So the denial of premise 1 amounts to this. X exists. X can only exist if y exists. And if y does not exist, and y does not exist, then this is absurd. So the whole idea of you having a universe there is absolutely ridiculous, unless there is that what it takes for the universe to exist. But what does it take for the universe to exist? Well, we've got 10 minutes. We can get there. Probably got quite a bit more to go. I might actually do that next week.
Or the week after.
Oh, 2 weeks, yeah, it's in 2 weeks, not next week.
So there's no class next week, but
Yeah,
there's
because it's
class
holiday.
on Easter Monday.
Easter
Yep.
Monday.
Easter Monday's fine by me. Unless you want. Oh, what? Party here. We can put it for 2 weeks. Do you want to have 1 week break or 2 weeks break? I am going to be probably a bit battered after the Easter festivities. No. Easter liturgies. I meant to say.
You've been fasting for 40 days.
40 days thou hast to fast. Yeah. This particular argument does have a lot of Saint, who was it? Maybe it's another one. That which it takes for the universe to exist. Yeah, I think it is one of the more difficult ones in order for us to get our head around the argument of origin of the ontological. And so, okay, that's number 13. That's when we really start to bring your worried look along when we get to argument number 13. Yeah, that's the whole argument about by Anselm of Canterbury, who wanted to produce a simple, single demonstration which would show that God is and what God is. Single it may be, but far from simple. It is perhaps the most controversial proof of the existence of God. Most people who first hear it attempt to dismiss it immediately as an interesting riddle. But distinguished thinkers of every age, including our own, have risen to defend it. For this reason, it's the most intensely philosophical proof of God's existence. Its place of honour is not without popular piety, but rather textbooks and professional journals. We include it. So he was talking that it's greater for a thing to exist in the mind and the reality than in the mind alone. God means that which is greater, than which a greater cannot be thought. That was his phrase. That than which a greater cannot be thought. And he expands on this, because he doesn't say God, he uses that than which a greater cannot be thought. And the argumentation goes to this massive long sentence, continually using this phrase, that than which a greater cannot be thought. A little bit like what it takes for that thing to exist. The mind needs to be tested. Don't you think? Alright, so we're finishing on page, you put a note down there, page 61, halfway down the page, 61.5. That's where we've pulled up for today. And we'll pick that up, what, 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Pick it up in 3 weeks? Alright. Alright, next week we can't do anything because I've got practices every night. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night I've got practices for the servers, and then obviously after Easter, yeah, let's give it a break, so we're coming back on the 4th, 25th of April. Anzac Day. I've got something down for that day. What have I got? No.
You see, by the way, there's some crazy philosophies out there.
Big time.
If you deny what it takes to exist, you know.
Okay, that is the week in which I am supposed to be at the FSSP regional meeting. So,
Where is that?
Sydney. Well, we'll see. Yeah, we haven't had a regional meeting for 3 years now.
Should we just pass the day then?
Is that?
We'll fly to Sydney.
Sounds like fun.
Can we do
Together with the Haast Eagle.
Fly on top of the sun.
Especially with favourable winds from La Nina,
Big eagles from
blowing on big easterlies across the Tasman Sea. So that would push us back quite a long way, actually, just quietly, into May. May 2, all right. Oh, hang on, district meeting. Oh, maybe that's the district meeting. Have I got both dates down? Oh no. Okay, so we are good for the 25th. Then it's the following week that I have the district meeting. Yeah, which starts on the Tuesday. So I think I'm flying on the Monday afternoon. Yeah, it is. District meetings the first week of May.
Yeah, no point going home.
Okay, so we're back on Anzac Day.
Maybe years
Oh yeah, so that's the weekend that I'm up in Whangarei. Yeah, because the 24th is Sunday the 24th is the 4th Sunday of the month, so then I go to this Low Sunday Mass in Hikurangi. I was going to stay the night up there, and then on the Monday morning I was going to do Mass server practice and then drive back to, well, the worst time to drive back to Auckland on a Monday of a long weekend.
Yeah, terrible.
Guts it out. Just guts it out. Guts it out, whatever. Whatever. Start
Says
our Mass
I'll
server
get back
practice.
early or late, one or the other.
I'll come back through Helensville. Just guts it out.
Time for prayer.
Yeah, that's right. Now I've got to drive up to Wellsford tomorrow and get my oil.
What did you get?
17 and a half litres.
17 and a half. Is it good
17.
oil?
17.
Oh, this guy reckons some of the best he's done. It's great.
So it's on food.
Is that
Food
last
oils?
one?
Yeah.
It's, 2 years ago, yeah, it's more than we got 2 years ago. Let's finish with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Glory be to the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end.
Benedictio Dei omnipotens Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, descendat super vos, mania semper. Amen.